Yes, we're ready. We always start the meeting with resident comments. Any residents here choose to make a comment or question? If not, let's place the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the meeting called to order. Those present, Dr. Reinhardt, present. Santoro, present. David Ott, present. Aaron Stout, here. John Elkins here. Andrew, Bill Sandoval, present. We have 6 of 7 board members present. We have a quorum. Do I hear, we've all seen the minutes of the last meeting have been passed on to us. Do I hear a motion to accept them?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Motion to approve.
I will. Your second? I'll second. Wilson did a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. The board president comments will be quite brief. Just mention that our committees are continue to work hard. They're stronger than ever. One committee that's really been working pretty hard is ARC. And something I want to suggest we do is our roofs are getting pretty dirty.
Yes.
You've probably noticed that. And we had a moratorium on that until now. I'd like to hear the board's opinion. Should we go ahead and start finding or sending out notices for roofs that need cleaning? The exception being those that are going to have repair or replace roofs. Yes, ma'am.
I think we need to move forward with that because there are many roofs that don't need repairs, but do need to be cleaned. And I have noticed in driving around and looking at roofs recently that I'm not seeing broken tiles laying. That was a concern of mine because with hurricane season now underway, loose broken tiles could become projectiles. And so I haven't seen, the roofs that I've seen that need to be repaired haven't had loose tiles.
Okay. Well,
Bill had his hand up.
yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that we need to start this, John. The one comments, I think we need to give residents like a 30-day notice
Oh, yeah.
that we're gonna start this so that if they get so they can start the remediation process on their own, and then in case they do get a violation letter, then they have a quote or a contract already in place that they can show the compliance officer.
I understand, but my understanding is that we give them a notice of immediate fix before we give them a fine. Is that true?
Well,
Three notice.
so what I'm suggesting is that communication either come from you or from Chuck saying, we are going to resume roof inspections on this date. So that they have time to go on their own and get it done before the inspection, so you don't clog up the system.
Okay. Well, then, a few years ago, when I had the experience of meeting mine done, and I was given notice.
Yeah.
I signed up with a contractor to do it, and it took 6 weeks to get him on board. And so what we did, what the board did, is say, okay, give us the letters and then we'll excuse you till that time. So if we have a big demand all at once, clearly it's going to take some time to get those clean. But any other opinions, Todd?
I think we just need to get started. My other thing would be, I think we need to give a specific exemption for anybody that has an open mark application. That would be identified clearly, and so anybody that had an open mark application to replace the roof would be exempt.
Do I hear a motion to on this subject, or
Go ahead, David.
I'll make a motion that we start sending out notices to residents. It might be nice just to send out an email first saying, as a friendly reminder, we're gonna start doing this next week, so
Is there a second?
Second.
Brown second. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, no.
I'd like to make one adjustment to that. There are some roofs, not many, that have a blue tarp over the entire roof. In that case, we can't see the tile, so those would also be exempt.
I don't think that would be implicit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's send the notice out then, and we'll start doing it after the fourth. Start sending out notices.
So we want to send out a notice.
Well, that's right, you won't be back.
Effective. We just send a notice out saying that we're gonna start doing this on what particular date.
Isn't Chris going on vacation?
Chris is going on vacation, yes.
So,
Okay, the first Monday then would be, the 10th of July.
Chris is out until the 17th.
So that'll give them enough time. I mean, if he's out, then that's good. They get an extra week of just thinking about it. So we don't need
Those
to.
aspects of the 10th, and obviously, no, it won't do anything until the.
Yeah.
But we'll give them opportunity.
Just a comment, can't you send something out in your GM
Yeah.
thing this week saying that once Chris returns, we're giving you a heads up, 2-week heads up.
Yeah, I was thinking of more formal blast to everybody, an email.
Yeah.
But
I
I'll
mean,
put
in
it
my
in
opinion, ignorance is not bliss in this. It's been the rules, and if you're in violation, you're in violation. So a courtesy note in your GM report or your comment should be sufficient. And then it kind of does what Bill's asked is, gives a little bit of a leeway to the 17th until Chris comes back to really enforce it.
We've already prepared, it's already done.
Okay.
We also mentioned, the soft wash option, because a lot of people are gonna say, I don't really want somebody walking on my roof. The soft wash option, anyone standing on the roof that could have broken tiles, so. But we'll get this out.
Okay. All right, I'll be, when we get to the Lakes Committee, we'll be talking about, a method of control of invasive species, but I don't want to do that now, wait till the Lakes Committee.
A second.
Maryland second. Okay, that concludes, my comments until we get to Lakes. Now it's treasurer's report, and I guess we gotta get out of here, Bill.
That's why I said it's-
Eating my words, I am.
Okay. So with this month's treasury report, we're slowly migrating to what I would call be more of a traditional structure, where we're gonna focus on operating budget, reserve budget, and then special projects. And right now, special projects would primarily consist of the remainder of the activity around hurricane and recovery. So for executive summary, we have received our draft audit report and tax returns for 2022. We are in the process of scheduling a review with our accountant to go over his comments in the tax return. We expect that this will be finalized in the mid-July timeframe in time for our federal tax payment, which is due at the end of July. The reserve inflow is still a red flag, and we're starting to look at that not only in terms of this year, but starting to address it in terms of what the implications are for the budgets going forward. The operating cash balance, risk mitigation plan, we'll talk about that later during the finance committee review. Long-term delinquencies are trending down, although there was a little bit of a bump up this past month. And the budget schedule is being worked out. I will be sending a note out to all the committee chairpersons shortly about the schedule. We're going to want to start getting a handle on the operating expenses no later than October 15th, and we're gonna need to have a handle on capital budget request by October 1st the latest. In terms of reserve funds, our budget, our balance as of the 27th was $3.4 million. Most of it is still in the Fifth Third investment account, and 328 is sitting in the PPP reserve account for paying bills. There has been no change in the market yield in the account from last month to this month, so we're still sitting at a year-to-date yield of about 3.11%. To manage cash flow and to pay for bills, primarily for Hurricane Ian recovery expenses, we had to take $240,000 out of the Fifth Third account and move that into the PPP account so we could write the checks. And one of the things I'll be going through in a little bit more detail later in this report is the remainder of the 2023 capital budget. Hurricane Ian, the recovery efforts are still ongoing. Chuck will go through those details in his report. The assessment was approved on June 1st. As of today, there's no change in the overall cost presented for the assessment review. Everything still seems to be on track with the numbers that we presented to the community. I'm working with Socia to finalize the logistics for the assessment. We're looking at setting up a separate account so it can be tracked separately. We can do separate delinquencies again and have good visibility and transparency to how those funds are being dispersed. And a community correspondence on the assessment will be mailed out in July, basically providing enough information so that people can start their insurance claim process. And there will be a follow-up correspondence as we get close to the payment date. Year-to-date financials, at the top line, operating income and expenses, there's no major red flags. There's a couple of details we'll go through on the expense side. User fees and collections continue to go ahead of budget. That's helpful in terms of building up cash in the operating budget that we can use to apply towards next year's budget. The operating expenses is a positive year-to-date variance, primarily from contingencies. We have not charged any expenses against contingency. So through about mid-year, nothing has come up unanticipated that we've had to use the contingency budget line for. We do have a red flag on reserve contributions. Year-to-date house sales are below forecast. We did see a slight improvement. So right now, our year-end variance is down from 47% in the red, 39% this month. And as I said earlier, we're looking at the impact that the reduced contributions will have for the 24 budget. In the major expenses, utilities, the variance in utilities is primarily driven from internet service variance. I'm spending some more time trying to dig into what's causing that. All other utility general line items show a negative $734 variance. That means the other utilities all seem to be pretty much in line with the budget. The community landscaping positive variance is still from reduced invoices in seasonal planting, sod, seed, tree maintenance, and other. Those activities were primarily booked against Hurricane Ian expenses in the first half of this year. We'll start seeing more expenses go into that account over the course of the second half of the year. Contract neighborhood landscape positive variance is due to reduced billings or invoices on the irrigation repair side. Although the activity of irrigation repair has been picking up, seeing a lot more invoices coming through from DTE for irrigation repair work. So I expect over the course of the last 6 months, we'll see that close to the budget. Contracted services will be closer to the year-to-date forecast. In June, we expensed the report cost for the Hannah Williams. This is the company that we did our engineering study. Hans Wilson. So yeah, we booked 14.4 for them in June, so that'll cause the that line to pretty much true up. And the other expenses, as I mentioned, no expenses have been allocated to contingencies. Most of the community irrigation repair maintenance work has been allocated to Hurricane Ian activities so far. I expect that'll change in the second half of this year. And we have $6,300 tax payment to make in July. From an operating balance sheet perspective, the assets and liabilities go up and down with the normal flow of money coming in and payments going out, so I haven't seen anything untoward there. Likewise, with the reserve balance sheet, you see a continual decline, and that's because we keep taking money out to pay for bills for Hurricane Ian. Once the assessment payments come in, we'll see the asset line, the reserve balance sheet go back up to where it was probably close to the beginning of the year. Delinquencies. The overall delinquency trend for the last 6 months are down. Long-term delinquencies increased about 12K from April to May. We'll see how that bears out over the next couple months. Although our largest long-term delinquency has been settled in bankruptcy, and the monies have been received for that, and they'll show up in the June financials. And so you'll see some settlement in these numbers as a result of that. This is where I wanted to spend a lot of time going through the Treasury report today, because we've been shifting our focus more to the capital side now that we've got the Hurricane Ian activities behind us in terms of the assessment activity. Year to date, we have spent $640,000. Most of it has been with activities associated with Hurricane Ian repair. I met with Associa last week, and we worked through revising the 23 reserve budget. So let me walk through these numbers one step at a time. This list here is all the list of the activities or projects that were in the reserve budget for this year. And they total $690,000. What Chuck and I did is we went through and we highlighted those items which were now being covered by the Hurricane Ian recovery efforts. For example, the replacement of signs project that was in the reserve budget got overtaken by replace all the signs that fell down as a result of Hurricane Ian. So as a result of that, the amount that we really were spending on true capital reserve projects this year is now $347,000. And that includes $271,000 of reserve projects and $75,000 which we had set up in the budget for discretionary projects. All right, moving over to the next one. The third task was to review the remaining reserve spend. And based on what has spent year to date, we have $240,562 left to spend on what was budgeted to be done this year. Of which, that means $73,000 for discretionary projects and $272,000 for the remaining projects that have to be done on this list. So if we're going to spend any more money on our capital budget, we have to decide to pull one of these things off, or decide that we're going to increase the assessment for next year to cover the overage in the budget from this year. So we'll be working on this on a more continuous basis, and this will start driving cash flow analysis for reserve needs for going into the budget next year. Just then, we want to end up with a quick summary of the Hurricane Ian recovery efforts. Since last month, significant progress has been made on completed projects, and the number of pending projects that still require hard quotes or commitments from contractors to come in and do the work has been dwindling. So I think hopefully we're on track to have this all behind us by year end, making that commitment for Chuck. Questions from the board? Nope.
report, but.
Good job.
General manager's report, Chuck.
I'll start off with Hurricane Ian fence repair. We were moving at a pretty good clip until we hit this heat wave. And the workers out there are starting to wilt a little bit. So we had hoped to be, at this point in time, be at Somerville. And they're just at the dog park today. So they're still working their way down the Deep Oil fence line. And the goal is to kind of finish up. The end piece is Somerville being last on the list. It basically went from Surfside all the way around. So there's some more scraps and things that need to be picked up. They're kind of leaving some things at Calypso until they get dumpsters and get that all taken care of.
I know we were quite happy with the quality of work along the surf side. Has that continued?
Yeah, and we do have, our project manager, works with them on a daily basis, so he's actually following behind and making sure quality is there. I want to talk about 30 roofs. Gate strikes for the month, there were 10 gate strikes. We collected $1,200 from those who struck gates. The Trafalgar Gate, which was damaged May 17th, we're still 6 weeks out to get those parts, the new gates, to replace the ones that are broken. And we are in the process of pursuing the insurance company of the driver who did that. So we hope to have near close to reimbursement for that. There is a law in the state of Florida that says you can only have up to $10,000 for property damage. Those who have the cheapest auto insurance that we have. So this driver has only $10,000 worth of coverage, so we're at $12,000, so we're at a loss of $2,000 unless we pursue legal action, which would overcome what would cost $1,000. So, but we are again, 10 gate strikes for the amount of entrances, exits we have. Percentage basis is not that much, but it does cost us. And it's an area where we have to watch the budget closely.
I have a question about Trafalgar gates. Some years ago, when one of the gates, the exit gates went out, board members tied the two gates together, which is really exceeds the capacity of the mount. Do we have any plan to put that back to a double opening rather than a single?
It's one of the budgetary items we wanted to talk about for 2024.
Okay.
Because we do see repetitive breaks,
Right.
because of the weight, the hinge breaks, and we have to replace the hinge.
Right.
But it's a substantial cost to put that pedestal back in. So, but that'll be part of the budget review for 2024.
Okay.
Let's see. I won't talk about this security company, you will, right? Yeah. Okay. Landscaping, on June 1st, we sent out an RFP for bulk residential landscaping services to 10 companies. We have 8 companies that are responded in favor, and they've already been on property and have begun the process of measuring and preparing for their quote, which will be due at the end of July. We're trying to push that up a little bit because some of them already feel comfortable with some of their numbers. We'll also be gathering their references, and landscape committee is already raising their hand to go out and check some references. So a little more progress with that. Happy to see that we have 8 companies. 2 companies that did not participate is because of labor issues that they have. Mr. DeSantis passed a new law and they're starting to suffer with labor. These other larger companies are not really, they feel that they can overcome that, so. Violations, okay, I jumped that, I'll do that next. I do wanna say that the Pelican building, thanks to a lot of graduations, and special events, renting this beautiful building here has generated $2,300 worth of revenue, income. So that's a good number, that's just fit the distance for what we budgeted. And we still have more to come, there's another one this weekend, plus we've had more in the earlier months. Let's see, we had 76, as of today, 76 violation letters were sent out, first and seconds. You will see thirds in about 2 minutes. And I have a quote for, I want to bring this up, part of the presentation that was up there, one of the expenditures was for replacing the glass doors on the flex room and the main doors, both of which were damaged by the hurricane by bending their hinges out, and they're not in a position to be repaired. They've been repaired, so they're useful, but they're not to what we need. So I have 3 quotes here. The one we'd like to select is glass by Marco, who actually did all the windows in here, and it's $28,816. I'd like to get board approval for that expenditure.
Is that within the allocated budget?
Yeah.
I make
It's
a
a
motion,
couple $100 difference,
I'm
but it's fine.
making a motion to approve it.
I second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's get on to the violations. We're gonna do this in a group this time. I'm going to need a motion for the board. You have these in your packet, had time to review them. We have, 1, 2, 3,
8 of them, sir.
8, we have 8, thank you. We gotta move these meetings up late in the day, I got no brains left.
So, yeah. I'd make a motion that we move forward finding the 8 that are listed in the package.
I second.
All those in favor I'm sorry, discussion, yes,
Under discussion.
okay.
It is true that they have received 3 letters requesting that they make the corrections that we're finding them for now. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
I just wanted to make that clear, that they have had notices 3 times and they still have not done what they need to do to not be fined. So I'm supporting.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
That's it for me.
Okay, we have, no old business scheduled. And the new business, I want to talk about this, and we'll probably discuss it some with the committee, but we've been told by Hans Wilson as well as Sawtooth that we have a abundance of invasive species in our ponds and lakes. The one that's extremely damaging to our lake banks is called Lacostomus, which is the armored catfish. They burrow into the banks and cause significant erosion. Some vendors will not even attempt to take them for us. The one method we're going to try is resident removal. And so this is not a long-term thing, although it could be that. What we'd like to see is the Lakes Committee has designed a derby, which is about 10 people, on only the phase 3 lakes, to remove Lacostomus and tilapia. And there'll be prizes and things for those people that get the most fish in the most weight, and that sort of thing. In order to do that, we will need a motion to approve the $500 or so we use to fund this, and also, to allow the removal of these fish. I don't, in the meantime, I'd like to task, if this passes, I'd like to task the governance committee with coming up with the language required to change our rules and documents in the resident handbook and that sort of thing. But not publish that until we've actually proved the case through our, then further, I'd like to charge the communications committee with posting those changes to the appropriate things like the Sandoval, the laws and regulations, and the resident. Would anyone be willing to make a motion for this that I've passed out?
I'll make the motion to create and fund the fishing derby. Or did you want everything in one motion?
Yes,
Okay.
and it's all written here and given to Chuck. It's written here. You got a copy?
Yeah, give it to Chuck so that he can have it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve all three, recommendations.
I'll second that.
Okay.
May I ask a question, John?
It's
So,
time to go. Sure.
So just a quick question, make sure it's clarification. We intend for this, lack of catch and release, so this destruction of invasive species of these two, we intend that to continue in perpetuity, infinitely?
Well, my thoughts were that it would be nice if it worked,
Okay.
yes. But I wouldn't want to change the documents and bylaws until we've had a chance to really test it. Well, let's give it to the next board meeting. And if it works, then let's press on. If there's a big problem, like people invading backyards and doing things that are abhorrent, we'll have to have another method. But I think it's a reasonable thing to try. One of our residents has already developed a fairly slick method of catching these fish. He's here tonight, Stuart Sector. Most people, when they catch gospels, if you look on YouTube, you'll see, and look up them catching them. They catch them with spears or bow and arrow or things like that, or gig them. Stu has developed a method with a rod and reel, where he gets the line near the fish with a treble hook on it, no bait, and then at the right moment, jerks and snags it. And you must have caught at least 10 this week, right?
15.
15. Okay, that's pretty good. So, the thing is, we ask Stu to give us maybe a YouTube video that we could pass around and see how we do this. And this should be a lot of fun. I don't think we'll have any trouble getting 10 people to want to participate. Any other discussion? Yes?
I do, and you won't be shocked from a risk management standpoint. Are we requiring people, we're limiting it to 10, correct?
For the first time, yes.
Are they required to sign up somewhere within the office to do this?
Yes.
Okay, and I would make a recommendation from a risk management standpoint that they sign a hold harmless, so that it protects us from the HOA standpoint of any problems or mistakes or injuries that may occur.
All right.
So can I just ask a question, Tad? So hold harmless just the HOA association, or should you hold harmless all other participants too?
I don't know if I can answer that, but I would maybe defer to maybe Bill Dunker to give an opinion or to come up with hold harmless.
Okay.
And what he
Yeah.
might think is the correct language on it.
Yeah.
But I think we need to have something that, just in case the spear gun goes off, and I mean, I'm exaggerating, but expect the unexpected, right?
Well, horror stories are horror stories because they happen.
Correct.
One thing I want to make sure is when we instruct the participants, no one will be allowed to use a spear gun out of the water. You cannot cock a spear gun unless you're in the water. It's too dangerous. I can spear, but not a spear gun.
I
And
feel better.
these individuals will be getting fishing licenses.
That's up to them.
I think there's a requirement. a
Well, there
state
is, but we're
requirement.
not, that's not, we don't police fishing licenses.
But we're
So your
responsible
question,
for
Marilyn, is
this
should,
tournament. That we're responsible for the tournament, so therefore we're responsible for them getting fishing license, because that's a state law. If we wanna pay for the licenses, okay.
No.
But we need the individuals that are going to be fishing to have licenses.
I suggest we have an amendment to this motion that requires a hold harmless as well as fishing license. Now, the exception to fishing license is someone like me who's over 65, not required for them,
True.
and over 65.
Everybody that is required to have a license should have a license.
Can I hear an
Can I
amendment to the motion? Is that fair?
Before we do that, John, can I ask one more thing? Are we limiting age? So would we let a 10-year-old do this?
Those are one of the best fishermen around here.
I'm just asking, since we're doing this as a trial, okay?
That's it. Stu, what'd you say?
We kind of wrote out some stuff.
I know, and
It's everyone could fish, but under 13 must be accompanied by an adult.
Okay,
And I believe on private property, you don't need a fishing license on private property. You double check, but I'm pretty sure.
okay, let's double check.
Well, and can
We certainly want to
I
include
say
the hold harmless.
something else about the fishing license?
Let's,
Well, I just want to tell you, currently in our handbook, it says fishing licenses may be required by the state of Florida. We do not tell people they can't fish without it, they just tell you, we just state that Florida may require you to have a fishing license.
okay,
So that's what we've got in our handbook currently.
But I understand Marilyn's point is we're
Responsible.
sanctioning this
yes.
Yep, just a point
tournament,
of,
so it puts
point of
us in a
reference.
different position.
plus in addition too, is there any reason not to be super conservative?
all right, go ahead. Let's restate the amendment, so Chuck can write it down. The amendment is require a hold harmless document as well as a fishing license,
If required.
if required. Do I hear a second to the amendment?
I'll second that.
Any more discussion?
And the age.
That's part of the rules of this contest.
Possible.
It's not mine.
Any more discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Uh,
Opposed, no. Are we ready for the motion? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. We will have this Thursday. We're going to new business.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Because I'm interested in the logistics. I guess it's limited to 10,
For this, we only have 10 people.
so will like 30 people show up at the office? And is there a sign up or is there a selection? process?
We'll have someone monitoring it, sign up, the 10, and that'll be it.
They'll sign up at the office.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Will selection be based on a lottery?
I don't know. We'll let the Lakes Committee run this.
That works.
I don't want the board to run it. Let the Lakes Committee run it. That's quite the paper. All right. That's another reason not having boards like these.
Totally.
Yeah, right. Let the committees do the work. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Next week, we have an ARC appeal. Keith Scott and Amy Hartman's guy for the home on 2630 Stony Hill Court, they request, they have a roof color appeal. The documentation essentially gives them all the roofs on Stony Hill now are either tan or reddish color, and they want gray. ARC has denied their application and their appeal. Is there anyone on the board that wants to accept their appeal and overturn ARC?
Mr. President, I would make a motion to deny the appeal. I've read the documentation both from the property owner as well as ARC's recommendation. So based on the documentation I've reviewed, I would suggest that we deny the appeal.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, for vote in a second, any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to bring up,
You're close to the mic, yeah. Not that
Sorry.
close, not that close. Get that.
No, the only issue that I have with it, I mean, the only issue that I have with it is the paperwork that was handed in by the homeowner while they were speaking to the ARC, to an LMG. But in the emails that went back and forth, they did approve the color that they want to a neighbor of theirs on March 9th and once again on March 11th for slate gray. And it's all documented in the documents that they handed in. Now, that is my only issue with us just blindly saying, no gray roof, no slate gray, when they approved it for somebody else, even though these people actually went and got a different color altogether. But that's just it. I just want to bring that up to make sure that it was happening.
Mr. President, I think you have Rob from the ARC committee that would be willing to make a comment.
Would you like to make a comment?
Sure, I'd love to make a comment.
Please.
As nobody on Stony Hill Court has been approved for gray roof.
That's what I thought.
Nobody. I don't know where he's come up with that idea, but nobody. They're tan or red. And we stuck with the colors. We had other people trying the same thing. But as for what you asked us to do, stick with the color palette of the streets, and we have done that. We have, and then key part, we gave him an offer, we gave him an alternative color, and he accepted it. But then he's come back and decided to appeal. I think part of the problem is he chose his roof color and ordered his roof color before he had ARC approved. Right. That's his problem, not ours.
I've seen the homes, it's a beautiful home, and the current roof looks quite beautiful. I don't know why he's replacing it, but I too believe that the gray applications that were approved were not on that street. They were friends of theirs, but not on that street.
Correct. There's lots of gray roofs, lots have been approved, not on that street.
I also drove that street because I wanted to see the different roof applications that were there. And there is very definite red, and then another roof is a marbleized kind of, it's different. I did not see any gray roofs. I wondered why he needed to replace the roof. I couldn't see anything from the street that indicated the roof needed to be replaced. Is it possible that he has already replaced it? No.
Okay, I don't think we need more discussion than we know we want to do.
Okay, I'm gonna support the motion because there aren't any other gray roofs on that street.
But we have a motion and seconded. All those in favor of denying this application say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
no,
no. Committee reports, landscaping, Mr. Ott, or your committee member?
It's just me.
Just you, okay.
Like Chuck mentioned about the RFP, so I'm not gonna go into much detail on that. We meet twice a month, and at each meeting, first of the month, we meet with Crawford, and then the second meeting of the month, we meet with DTE, just to basically get a status update, where they are and if they're on schedule. Crawford's on schedule, DTE is behind schedule. I don't know what else to say other than that. We are beginning to look at how we're gonna tackle the repairs that we need to make to the community and the common areas. There's a number of issues we have to look at, such as bringing in some type of landscape architect to give us their recommendation on what we should and shouldn't do. And then also, we need to go to the finance committee to see if there's any money available to do that. It's not gonna be a cheap project, but that's something we have to look at, and we have to start getting ideas of the cost so that we can go to the finance committee. That's about it with the landscape committee.
I will say, I attended the last meeting, and the really good vendors deliver more than they promise. Yeah, we got one that does the opposite. And, well, we don't.
Well said.
I just have one comment. So when you look at this as we need 2 quotes from landscape. One for the study, and in theory, the study would then produce a financial plan in addition to a replanting plan in terms of, and that we could look at. So the study can be looked at as a short-term need, which I think, assuming it's not a crazy number, I think that's something we could look at swinging in this year.
Good idea, I agree with you.
Yeah, I just think we just need to know that number as soon as possible, so we can.
Yeah, we need to start looking at that so we can get those numbers instead of.
Yes.
This is what we're looking at to bring somebody in.
Yes, yeah. So then, yeah.
I have a quick question. I think it's wonderful. I think it's a great start. I've mentioned this a couple of times, and it probably would be something that I think Bill would support from a financial standpoint. I think we need to look at a phased project type of thing. Versus a shotgun all at once, that we start maybe at the Veterans Gate and move over a 3 to 5 year period.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think,
I like to see a picture of what we want it to look like and then phase to get there.
Yeah,
And-
well,
and in
and the
theory-
landscape committee is fully on board with that. They realize this is gonna be a multi-year project.
Perfect.
So Tad, I think it makes a lot of sense, because in addition to what we prioritize for the reserve studies every 2 years, we can have a separate line item for re-landscaping. So we put transparency into that project, and we can show it over a couple of years.
Got it covered. Perfect.
Yeah.
And as long as we're continuing to sod and mulch up to that point to make those areas effective looking.
Instead of redoing it and wait another 5
Palatable,
years,
yes.
play catch up again.
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Communications, David out.
Communications, there was not a communications committee meeting this past, during June, because a number of the committee members were out of town. But there is I did get a report that the communication committee is still concentrating on maintaining the Live Sandoval website and they've updated the landscape and lake pages. They have also established the Lundy Library page. The social media efforts are in full swing. Members of the Socials Committee, as well as the Lifestyle Director, are now regularly posting events and happenings on the Sandoval Cape Coral Facebook page. And they are also using the Sandoval Lifestyle Instagram group. And the final thing is they've been, and this has been brought up multiple times, we're still looking for volunteers to assist with live streaming, creating or resurrecting the Sandoval Today newsletter and maintaining the resident handbook. I mean, they're juggling a lot of things, trying to keep up with everything that's going on here. And to be honest, there's only, I think it's 5 people on the committee.
Could we send out an appeal from the general manager or to ask for additional help on that committee? Yes. Okay.
And that's it for the communication committee.
suggestion, because, there used to be a gentleman that did a newsletter for the community before I moved in, if I remember correctly. Are any of those newsletters still on my Sandoval?
Yes.
Okay. You may wanna link to one of those, Chuck, just to show this is what was done before this gentleman retired. So someone can get an idea what we're looking at resurrected here.
Okay. I'll work with Chuck and get him
Good.
the letter and everything else. Okay.
Are you speaking for ARC, Marilyn?
Well, Rob, do you wanna speak for ARC?
Sure, I'll speak.
Do we need a mic for
Do you
him?
need a mic?
Yeah.
Okay. We've been, as you can imagine, extremely busy. We have months where we have 25 applications, we have months where we have 50 applications. And we're doing the job according to guidelines that you guys have set down. I think we had 50 applications for Saturday, I've heard. So we're extremely busy, and there's still a lot of roofs that haven't even been touched. So that's basically the state of the union.
And I think this last meeting, there was only 1 or 2 that were refused.
Correct. We tabled 2, I think, on the last meeting. We're doing our best to get them approved. If somebody comes by with the wrong color, we'll send an email, try to suggest a appropriate color. If that doesn't go anywhere, then there's nothing we can do. We have to refuse it. So, but we're trying as best we can to accommodate everybody and all the, I don't know how many hundred groups there are.
Thank you and your committee for this. Man, really.
Absolutely.
And I just heard from one of our residents, Aguila, that her neighbor that was supposed to get a new roof starting this weekend has been delayed a month.
Because
Oh,
product, or labor, probably labor. Okay, social.
Tom, do you wanna speak to social?
I'm Jim.
Well, that's okay. Rob's not chairing our, so consequently, if you'd like to speak,
I'll defer to you at this point. I'll add
Okay.
anything that's.
the meeting that was held, and there are 2 meetings per month. The meeting that was held last week, I think it was, the Father's Day event was a great event. And, every seat was filled. In fact, I think there was even a waiting list, but it was a great event, everybody, and the room looked fantastic. They had a movie night for teenagers, and another one is planned, and that was, well attended. There's a dance for teenagers again, coming up. And as of that meeting, there were 21, that had signed up, which is good. There was discussion about, Halloween and Christmas, but the Christmas lights, it was decided on December 8th. The Halloween decisions are still a little tentative as to what direction will be taken, but it will be discussed again at the upcoming meeting. And Jessica's doing a fantastic job. She really has been good about, renting the facility, as Chuck already mentioned, and there's several more rentals coming up. But the social committee will, have the first opportunity on the different events, such as the Derby. Instead of maybe it being a resident-led event, it will be an HOA event. So I think that's it.
Thank you. Dan, amenities.
Yeah, not much, everything's running pretty good, the pool's good. Chuck and his people are taking great care of that. A couple of treadmills in the gym were acting up, but I don't think it's the treadmills, it's the electrical plugs. Brian's on that, so I'm working on that today. The bocce ball courts, guys, are asking for a tiki hut and the fans, Rob's on that. He's on it, you know, Rob, he'll take care of that.
Has there been a budget allocation?
We're gonna wait on it. We're talking about it, things have been submitted, and we're gonna be waiting for the new budget to come around in order to have money allocated in order to go forward with it.
So,
How about power to, you don't have good power going out there, do you? Electrical power?
Rob,
Yes, when all the courts were torn up,
Right,
we ran conduit from the two near tiki huts have power and fans. We ran conduit to the other two tiki huts to provide for fans. All they basically need is the wire fished and
The fans aren't that
two fans
expensive.
put up.
Why do we need delay?
The delay was, I talked to Stan on delays on the new tiki hut.
Oh,
They're asking for another tiki hut. I said, but I'm still in the process of getting an estimate on that. So, but if they could get the fans put in quickly, you know, or reasonable, I mean, it's murder out there.
but a tiki hut can only be built by Native American, and it's kind of Florida law, something like that.
Well, we've dealt with Southern Cross. They redid these.
Yeah.
They reconstructed the ones down in Calypso Park after the storm, so they're, okay.
But the fans are inexpensive, why don't we just do the fans? You got the wire.
so there's a process.
Yes, sir.
Okay? So they put the quotes together.
Couple $100, you're fine.
How many people?
You got an electrician that do $100.
What?
You gotta give me the name of that electrician.
Oh, yeah, well, those guys will put it in, they know they would, they'd put it in.
Yeah,
Give the fans, they'll install it, yeah.
Just to reiterate what Bill said, follow the process. That's what gets us in problem, that's what gets us in trouble all the time, just follow the process.
I mean, there's 72K left of discretionary expenses.
You're right.
If this is, it gets to the finance committee by the third week in July, it can go to the board at the July meeting.
all right, back to me. Amenities, the last thing is, we know we have the horns when the lightning strikes, when the 10 miles out, all the fields in Cape Coral have them. We have one, it's working great. There's Earth Networks countdown that I put on one of the Facebook pages, and I talked to Chuck to put it on Sandoval Living or Lives, Live Sandoval. I asked him to put on everything. It tells you exactly how far away the lightning is, and your countdown to when you can come back to the pool. You can do it from your house, so I see a lot of people waiting and nobody really knows what's going on. So it's basically a link that you click on and it tells you exactly how much time you got left until all clear to go back to the pool. It's very simple.
So I have a question. Is that the procedure that the pool attendants follow to let people get back?
It's the horn system.
The horn system.
Tied to that same.
It's timed to the same, so it's the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were sitting at home and you weren't within earshot of the horns, you could look at your phone and say, okay, that's good.
Okay, I just wanna make sure it's the same system you guys are
This
using.
system, not you have the next door neighbor.
Okay.
Okay, Dan, you ready to go to safety and security?
Yeah, safety and security. St. Moritz is going to be our new security company. I'm impressed with them. Far better than the last three we've had. Not much to say about them except for they're going to be here tomorrow morning to introduce themselves, do a coffee conversation. They're a great outfit. Chuck has met with them a ton of times. I've met with them twice. And I think this is pretty much going to be it for us for a very long time. Like I said, very professional. Class A shirts to come in first, nice and dressed up. Level of authority, willing to do the work. You know, we also shall see. We made 2 mistakes in the last 2. So, but this one looks pretty good. They'll be in here tomorrow, like I said, during coffee conversation for that. Chuck, go ahead.
I'm Bill.
Yeah, no, Bill, I'm sorry.
When is your contract gonna start?
The 18th, right, Chuck?
18th. So they're not providing coverage over the 4th of July holiday?
The old,
No, the old one. They're
Yeah,
still
no.
here, they're still,
The reason I'm asking, because there's a holiday surcharge when they come, so I just wanted to know how much the
no,
budget.
it'll still be our great
Okay.
coverage from these geniuses out there. So yeah, that's it with that. The gate, Chuck went over that, is gonna be fixed in a couple weeks. I've been talking about the traffic and, traffic release, traffic signage, traffic, LED stop signs, speedometer, all that. Safety and security put in, the paperwork to, purchase a lot of, traffic related options to slow down traffic so that everybody can see the stop signs and this and that we think it'll work. Signs on the main drag strip out here coming from Pine Island Road so that people can cross safely, to walk their dogs in the grassy area out there. Hopefully it'll help like the ones that we have in the crosswalks now. We're just going through the process. We ran into a little snag because we didn't put it in the correct way. So now we just gotta backtrack and go through the proper channels. But it's not cheap, about $15,000 to $16,000 worth of speedometers, LEDs for the stop signs, more stop signs, more signs to help alleviate the speeding that that we see. Hopefully it'll help it in that matter. And that's it for safety and security and emergency.
thank you, Stan.
I'm gonna ask the obvious question. The wish list, is it in the budget?
It's not in the budget, so in theory, if this gets approved, it would come out of that discretionary bucket, which is at 72K right now. This request is really 19,900, if I remember the paperwork that just came through. So that's why we need to get things in to look at, and then the other question is to sit down with Chuck and say, okay, we were gonna do this on the reserve list, do we really need to do it? And if he comes back and says yes, because this is still not working well, then the budget's the budget, and when we spent the money, we're done. Unless we want to.
It has to go next to the finance committee, and it has not gone there yet.
Well, the good news is there's controls in place.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And it's not like,
Right.
hey, let's find things from heaven to pay for things. If it's not within the budget or it's not being taken from one place to, like you were saying, so that's great news.
And if a car starts slowing down, we don't need any of that stuff. So,
Well,
Yeah,
Stan,
right.
I'm not, Stan,
And
this
big
is not
flag,
saying
right?
this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
not
yeah.
a need, it's just that, like any household budget, you prioritize what you really need to spend your money on, and then you don't spend your money on the real discretionary things, so you hold off for another year to do something.
it's like waiting to buy cookies because you need oatmeal.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
I got it.
How many additional stop signs are we talking about?
With the new proposal, I think we cut them down, and I didn't read the new proposal, I just know the price went down. But, I really don't wanna even guess, but, yeah.
It's, we got the paperwork, it's like 1,999 or something like that, so.
Yeah.
That's not any more stops.
Oh, no, well, it's probably, I can go look at it, well, I'm sure it's in there.
Okay, Lakes Committee next, Jane.
You want me to go up to the podium?
Ask our AV director.
Wherever you like.
Just have her hold it.
Can't chuckle.
Take it out of the.
Okay. The Lakes Committee met twice in June. On June 15th, we had Ernesto in from the Pond Watch, Lee County Hyacinth Control District. We spoke at length about our lakes. It was a great meeting. I didn't think to count how many people came. It was a pretty good turnout. It was recorded and broadcast for the community. The recording is available at Lake Sandoval. We had a second meeting on June 22nd. This was a special meeting to discuss the invasive fish derby that we talked about earlier. After reviewing several, this is just a recap of what we talked about. This came from the engineering report that was done for the ad hoc committee by Hans Wilson. It's also from reports from the lake doctor that we have a real problem with these two invasive species of fish. They destroy the shoreline, which then deteriorates the whole lake. So we really need to find a way to get rid of them. We're gonna try this limited fishing derby to see if we can remove these fish. And if it works out, we'll try to expand that. The other thing is we're still waiting for quotes from two vendors on shoreline repair for the lakes. This is not Calypso, that's a separate one that was repaired from the hurricane damage. So we're waiting on quotes for repairing the shorelines and also planting with more littorals on the shorelines in all the lakes. Have them evaluated as to where the serious conditions are, what needs to be fixed, and the cost involved. I've met with Mary Beth from the Strategic Planning Committee, and we will be working on providing what they want from the committee. Now that we've gone through it, I understand better what they need. And that's it. Any questions?
That would be that band.
Beth Ann.
That band, not that.
I wrote down Beth Ann.
I know.
It's okay. Well, I was looking at you.
Thank you, Jane.
But I am on the Lakes Committee.
Lakes Committee is doing a great job. Thank you very much. Finance.
Sean?
Yeah. I think I'm off to say, oh, yeah, okay. I can hold it.
Sean Kinney from the Finance Committee. We met on the 27th, reviewed things. We went through the Hurricane Ian progress. Again, as Bill covered, the assessment was approved and we're working through that process there. We reviewed the May financial numbers, the operating and reserve accounts, the variances there. Reviewed the delinquencies and the trends there. We reviewed the 2023 reserve fund study, what's on the books and then what's already been covered through the Hurricane Ian expenses. Looked at the cash flows of the reserve investment fund versus the checking and spending account there, so that's continuing to be monitored. A big discussion we had was the operating checking account. That has a limit of $250,000 for FDIC insurance. With some of the banking issues that happened earlier this year, we've been talking about how to better protect those funds. Committee member Rob Herron worked really hard to research our various options. We had a meeting with Associa. Jared is their banking relationship manager, and he talked through our various options of what's a good way to handle this to be sure that association funds are well protected when they're above that $250,000 limit. His recommendation was a money market sweep account with Enterprise Bank and Trust that has up to $25 million of FDIC insurance coverage, and it does have a current interest rate of 2.75%. So we'd have some interest on the balance there and also full FDIC coverage. So after discussing various options, talking that through, the committee did make a motion to approve going through the process with GM and the treasurer to go with that enterprise money market account there. We talked through the rest of the meetings for the year and the budget prep schedule for 2024. We got a meeting on this calendar for September to plan the budget and then we'll work through that October, November timeframe to make sure we're on track for the budget. So that was our finance committee meeting recently.
Thank you.
So,
Bill, do you wanna do that resolution now?
yes, as a follow-up, I'd like to put this resolution on the table. Whereas it is in the best financial interest of the association to minimize the risk with maintaining an operating account balance of more than the current FDIC limit of $250,000. Be it resolved that the association directs Associate Gulf Coast to work with the treasurer and the finance committee to set up an operating account utilizing the IntraFi cash service through Enterprise Bank and Trust. This transition is to be completed no later than August 24th, 2023.
That's your motion?
That's the motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Discussion.
Can I make a few more comments first?
Of course.
Okay. First of all, my apologies to the board. I was ill last week, so we actually had a very in-depth meeting with with Jared from Associate Corporate Headquarters to go through all the details of this, and I didn't write it up last week, so I apologize for the lateness of getting this information to the board for their consideration. So that's the first thing I want to say. Secondly, just to amplify this a bit, what this is a network of banks that are all part of this ICS network. So what happens is when our primary checking account, which is managed by Pacific Premier Bank, reaches a threshold number, any funds in excess of $250,000 are automatically swept into this ICS account.
Keyword automatically.
Automatically, correct.
Okay.
Then what happens is that Enterprise Bank and Trust manages a network of partner banks in this ICS network. And if our balance goes above 250, it then automatically spreads the money out to these partner banks across the country. And then if we want the money back, there's a single point of contact with Enterprise Bank and Trust where we treat that as a single managed account. We'll get a single report on all the funds on a monthly basis, and if we choose to, we can also write checks against that
Can
account.
we draw that, not just through a social, or can we draw it through our methods?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Could you write a check on it?
Well, I can't physically write a check, but Associate has our authority to write a check against it. If we decide to set it up like that, there's two ways it can be done. You can always require money to be put back into Pacific Premier Bank, so we're only writing checks against one account. Or we could say the big ticket monthly invoices, let's say for the neighborhood landscaping, CenturyLink, and a few of the other ones that are in that top tier, they could be written with checks directly out of that Enterprise Bank money market fund.
What do you recommend?
I'd like to sit down and talk to the associate bookkeeping people to see, because they have to manage two checking accounts, and then we've got to manage, and we've got to look at two checking accounts too. So I've got some pros and cons that I'd like to discuss them before we come up with a final implementation plan.
Well, this is something we've been wanting to do for some time.
Yeah, I mean, Todd rightly identified this as an issue back in February with some of the bank issues that were coming up, and we've been doing it. And we've just got, and there's some longer term banking issues that we need to address, from a strategic perspective. But I think in terms of short term, this is a well-established network that's used by both for-profit and for non-profit entities across the country.
As our banker on the board, what's your opinion, Mr. Mayor?
Well, people have to understand, as Bill highlighted, this is a risk mitigation strategy, not an investment strategy.
Right.
So this is a way of spreading FDIC risk over a couple of banks versus one.
Because
And
it's not limited.
right, it's a very prudent strategy. Actually, Enterprise Bank and Trust is located in Clayton, Missouri, and they do have a 5-star power rating, which is the highest you can get. So they're fairly they're good. IntraFi I was not familiar with, but I did make a contact with a former CFO that I worked with, and who's also another CFO. He's also a CFO presently with a bank in Central Florida, and he shared with me IntraFi is a very good organization to work with, and he highly recommends them, that there is no issues whatsoever. So it all makes sense, and I think Bill just touched on it at the end. My concerns that's been for a couple of years is that I would hope that as we move forward that we, meaning Sandoval HOA, controls our banking relationship and dictate who we use and who we don't use going forward. And I know Bill and I talked about it a little bit today, because I think we need to have some controls on that versus being told who we can and cannot use. So that would be my only comment. But other than that, I completely support what we're trying to do.
Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor of this move, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Unanimous. Okay, covenants, and
Yes, I was actually out of town, so I want to thank Todd for standing in for me. I do have his notes that kind of discuss what they covered. We did have those 3 violations that we passed in the May board meeting. Those 3 owners chose not to exercise their appeal rights. The committee voted unanimously 5-0 to back the decision that the board made at that meeting. With regards to the rest of the meeting, it appeared to be a lot of updates to ongoing things that we've already talked about today, such as security, gate strikes, etc., things of that nature, the towing window, trash compliance, those type of items. A couple items here that they were discussing, I think the board needs to at least be aware of. These are conversations that the committee will be having and probably feeding back to us, is that we are looking at folks that are not compliant with the property rental processes here in Sandoval. Those are things that need to be registered, your leases need to be registered. Chuck noted, assuming Chuck noted to the committee and to Todd that those amenities are restricted to the renters when the process is not followed. So we definitely want to make sure we're standing firm on those decisions to control our amenities when the process hasn't been followed. As a former renter, before becoming a homeowner in here, I know that we went through that registration process correctly and had no problems using amenities because our landlord did what they were responsible for. Secondly, we've got the situation where kind of related is where short-term rentals or property share things such as Airbnb and Verbos are becoming an issue in the community. And I know that outright those are not permitted based on the documentation, as I understand it.
it's too short term.
Too short term and too frequent. My understanding is we're only supposed to do a set number of rentals a year, and if you're Verboing or Airbnb, you're obviously doing that far more. And then they said Chuck obviously has already kind of discussed, and he had a conversation with me last week with regards to roof maintenance. That seemed to be a big topic of conversation at the meeting, and it sounds like we're beginning to move forward with that process a little more hastily than was initially discussed last week, and I totally support that decision. So that was predominantly what was covered. We will again meet on the 3rd Thursday of this month. We will see if we have any of these current violators present to appeal. We will handle those appeal. The committee will handle those appeal and get feedback to you guys on that.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Todd Reinhardt, risk management.
Risk Management Committee met on Monday, June 26th. The chair, Mr. Dunker, had a great idea, which isn't such a great idea. Just joking. He thought it would be beneficial to have Stan involved in the Risk Management Committee meetings, at least on a quarterly basis, because there's a lot of cross things that we do, and it's important that we understand what Stan and his group's doing so that we can address any type of risk management issues. So Bill and Stan have agreed to meet at least on a quarterly basis. Craig Snyder provided us an update on our insurance claim. We've gone through, as Chuck will attest to, some logistics issues where the original adjuster is no longer on it. They hired a new adjuster, and this particular adjuster didn't have the documentation. I'm sure everybody's been it has experienced the same thing. Long story short, they do have the documentation now, and so they were requesting final bills so that they could make one final payment. We're going to take the approach, because we do not have all the final bids at this particular time, that we're going to ask them for a check on what's owed to us at this point, and then go for a final bill at the end. So Craig is trying to work out those details with the insurance company, and he's been doing a great job. The committee has also reviewed to date 6 contracts. We've tightened down our vendor agreements to make them more in our favor or level playing field versus more on the vendor side. And last but not least is that we talked about exposures. Chuck's talked about a proactive approach to inspecting the playground equipment. And another exposure item is record keeping. And kudos to Denise for recording the motions within this meeting as a record, because record keeping has been something that has, unfortunately, Chuck has inherited that is an issue. And so he's trying to figure out how to get that handled. So thanks to Chuck for doing that, and also thanks to Denise. The other last request from the Risk Management Committee is that we're asking, again, for record-keeping purposes, that all committees submit formal minutes to Chuck for the record, so that we have a record of any discussions within the committees that take place, so we don't second guess ourselves. So there's your summary of risk management.
Thank you. I see we have Jerry waiting in the weeds for strategic planning.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jerry.
Handing me a mic, I gotta make sure I got the right event going on. Strategic planning. Strategic planning's been pretty busy. We've met 3 of the 4 weeks this past month. The one we didn't meet was my fault. I had a scheduling conflict. But in looking at the schedule and tasks yet ahead of us, we decided yesterday we're going to double up our efforts. We'll probably be meeting twice a week for the next month in order to get through. We feel like there's a lot of work we want to get done, and according to the schedule that when we were talking with Bill yesterday, for the board to be able to get through their budget process in October, they're really going to start looking at that beginning in September. We would like to have a strategic plan before the board no later than the end of the August meeting for the board to adopt the strategic plan. In order for that to occur, we need to have at least our initial draft before the board no later than the July meeting. So looking at what needs to happen in the next month, there's a lot. We've gotten a lot of information from the various committees. Thank all the committees for their submissions thus far. We're working on coordinating those goals and doing the appropriate analysis for goals that the committee feels are strong goals that our community should have, as well as aligning those goals with the various activities that the committees are currently working on in order to create what we think is the top 12 hit list, as it were, from a priority perspective. And we'll submit that to the board to get their input as well. Some of the things that we noticed that are delinquent in the data that we've gathered thus far, and thanks to Rob and Dan for both hitting the discretionary fund for different projects, because I think that drives why we need the strategic plan in play. It gives us a little longer looking view of some of the initiatives and potential expenditures, so that then the board, as they're looking at our discretionary funds, they can see some of these things coming before they show up at the door. And it helps just, that we're not all fighting for the same bag of cookies, I'd like to have oatmeal and cookies both at the same table, right? But that's really the purpose of our strategic plan, is to start looking a little farther down the road where possible, get a little better planning process in play, so that we're looking at these expenditures and we see them coming from a little farther distance, and it's not a surprise, and the board can appropriately budget and be better positioned as they're looking at these approval processes. It's great that I want to do the fans of the bocce court, and that may be a good or great thing, but I may decide that I know of the stands project coming along that may be a higher importance. I don't want to delegate funds if I know I've got a larger project coming down the road that I need to hold back for. So again, it's really about this planning. One of the things that we're gonna be pushing forward to all of the committees is not only as you're looking at these goals, but what we would like to see, and we're gonna be reaching out and asking all the committees for this, is what is your success criteria? It's great that you got a goal that you wanna increase visibility, and pedestrian safety, or whatever the project may be. Talking about getting rid of the invasive species of fish. What is our metric for success? How do we know when we've achieved our goal? Or is that goal just an ever-ending, something that we're always gonna be fighting against? Because if it truly is a goal, it should have some success metrics. So we're gonna be asking our committees to think in that terms. Not only look a little farther down the road of what is it you're trying to ultimately accomplish, but what does that success criteria look like so that it's attainable and we know that we've satisfied that. Because anybody that's been in business, it's easy to get to that 80% mark with reasonable effort, but you spend a whole lot of effort to get from that 80% complete to the 90% complete, and you may spend the rest of your days on this earth trying to get that last 10%. So at what point are we going to say that what we've done is successful? We're trying to rely on the various groups to provide that success metric. And likewise, what's the timeline? When do you anticipate setting a timeline for yourselves of attaining those metrics or that success rate? So we're trying to get a lot of that kind of information pulled together into the strategic plan, and we've got our timeline together. But we're committed to make it happen. Thank you, Jared. Thank you.
I'd like just to make one quick follow-up comment is I personally have not been able to make all of the strategic planning meetings due to work commitments, but it's been amazing to me how this particular group keeps chugging along under the leadership of Jerry, and they need very little direction, and they've basically been meeting and pulling this off by themselves as a group. And so I'd like to express my appreciation to Jerry and the committee for keeping this thing going. And Beth Ann, I read your PowerPoint presentation this week, and that's extremely well done. So I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna be extremely proud of the final product this group comes up with. So that's my final comment.
Thank you. Okay, our next meeting is July 27th. Our current meeting is adjourned. We have time for resident comments. Any resident comments? If not, see you later.